Y'all keep it down. I'm kidding. I'm, I'm kidding.
No, he's been asking a long time.
Live. This is Law Call.
Hey, good evening and welcome to Law Call. I'm attorney Chris Young with the law firm of Perry & Young, and tonight we're talking about fighting the insurance company. So if you've got any questions about your insurance company, you feel like not doing it right, or maybe there's an insurance company involved in anything in your life and you just feel like they should be treating you a little bit differently, give us a call, 850-392-1544. You can always email us your questions at lawcall@wmbb.com. You know, we're getting really close to Halloween, and so tonight I'm actually joined by Gary Starr, but he's dressed up as Ted Howell. And Ted, you do, is it Gary or Ted?
I'll go with Ted tonight.
Ted tonight? Okay, all right. So anyways, Ted, we're fighting the insurance company. This is something that we do every day of our lives, it feels like. You know,
if you're going to fight, you might as well fight an insurance company.
Hey, if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly bear.
Exactly.
Right? But anyways, you know, insurance companies insure cars, they insure homes, they insure businesses, properties, and so, you know,
all aspects of life.
Right, and so no matter where you go, you probably have a strong chance of that you're going to, if you have an incident somewhere, that you're going to have an insurance company involved.
Yes.
We have a lot of drivers on the road. We see a lot of car accidents that come through our office every day, every week, every month. Some are repeats. You know, we hope there's some, most of them aren't, but they are with our clients. But, you know, we can, you know, the big thing now is with the recent legislature that the state of Florida has instituted over the last couple of years has really given the insurance companies a lot larger muscle, so to speak, a lot larger freedoms to actually
giving
make it
them
a little bit
more
tougher
power, all to the detriment of the Floridians who actually elect the officials that pass those laws.
Right, and so it's tougher now, and so, you know, let's explain this, and this is a complex topic that we kind of get in sometimes, but dumb it down for us what bad faith used to be like and what that really meant.
Well, I mean, a lot of it depends on the context we're dealing with. So let's start in the beginning, just in the first party context. And when I say first party, I mean that's a situation where you're dealing with your own insurance company. That's first party because that's your contract with that individual insurance company. The bad faith in that has not changed dramatically. We still, in order to have that scenario, you have had to have been in negotiations with the company, and you have to actually send them a formal notice. It's called a civil remedies notice, where you have to articulate all the violations of Florida statutes that the insurance company has done, and you have to formally send that to the state, copied to the insurance company, identifying those violations, identifying the adjuster who made the violations, and then they have a period of 60 days within which to respond and rectify those particular things that you pointed out. If they do that within the 60 days, that's an automatic cure and there is no bad faith. If they don't, and if you can ultimately establish that they have indeed committed violations of their obligations of good faith and fair dealing with respect to the various obligations under the contract and Florida statutes, then there's a potential that you can hold them liable for bad faith. But there is a 60-day cure period before you can get to that. So it's grossly different in the third-party context, which is a situation where we're dealing with somebody who has injured you and their insurance company has not treated you fairly.
Well, let's just jump into that. I mean, say someone's sitting at a stop sign, all of a sudden they get rear-ended.
Right.
And the insurance company, for whatever reasons, puts their head in the sand. And you got significant injuries. You went to the hospital, stayed in the hospital. Insurance company on the other side just doesn't even respond.
Right.
You hire a lawyer, you know, bad faith is starting to creep in on that. And tell us about that.
Right. Traditionally, under the Florida common law, which was governing this, which common law is the case law as created by the judges of the appellate courts, it was a standard of reasonableness with respect to whether the insurance companies, if they were standing in the shoes of the insured, which is the person who caused the accident, and if they had the assets that they were trying to protect, would they have resolved the case within the limits of the policy of whatever the particular insured had. So let's just take a big, hypothetical extreme example. If you have someone that was driving drunk and kills someone and there's only a $10,000 policy, clearly that claim is going to exceed that value of that policy. So any insurance company that was acting in good faith would immediately, proactively try to tender that money as quickly as possible.
And when we say good faith, do the right thing.
Do the right thing,
right?
Because someone has lost a loved one. There's someone that caused that accident. They bought that insurance policy to protect them in that situation. Unfortunately, they have way inadequate coverage in order to rectify that. So the obligation would be as quickly as possible to go and tender that. And the standard of what was right or wrong with respect to the number of days and the amount of due diligence before you do that was based off of the particular facts and circumstances of the case. In the example I gave, anybody would know that you need to do that as quickly as possible. Now the legislature has changed the game and made it very similar to the first party process, where you have to do, it's that you don't have to do a formal CRN per se, but there's essentially a 90-day window within which a third party insurer cannot be in bad faith, and there's several steps that have to take place. So you've basically given every insurance company in the state now 90 days within which before they could ever be deemed in bad faith. And there's clearly examples of scenarios where 90 days could mean a lot to a family as they're sitting there dealing with situations that clearly deserve a tender.
So, every issue, even though an insurance company is not paying like you think they should, does not mean that they're in bad faith, though.
No, not anymore.
There may be a lot of circumstances behind why they're not paying, but that's why you hire a lawyer.
Right.
That's why you hire someone to advocate for you.
Anytime you're dealing with these scenarios, it's much more difficult to analyze, especially a bad faith, because like you said, just not paying or just not resolving the claim doesn't mean you're in bad faith. It has to be, a much more extreme example in that. And typically, in order to make that analysis, in order to have that properly come to a fruition, you're going to need professional assistance in the form of a good seasoned trial lawyer to help you with that.
Now, Ted, a lot of individuals, well, I shouldn't say a lot. That's not right. Some individuals actually try to do it themselves.
Yes.
And they say, well, my insurance company is being so nice to me. They're saying all the things I want to hear. They're giving me a little bit of check, basically feeding me along. But in those situations, it could even be more dire to the insurance company acting in bad faith, because they're actually participating in stringing this person along, knowing that their injuries and damages far exceed the insurance policy, that they should just go ahead and tender to them.
Chris, you're aware of examples we've had in our own office where individuals worked with an insurance company for over a year under the understanding they were going to take care of them, providing all of their medical bills, all of their information, anything that was requested, signing the releases, doing everything. And in that particular case, there was only a $50,000 policy, and this was a gentleman that had to have multiple surgeries, and it was clear they should have paid it, and they just kept stringing the man along, and he finally got fed up and came and saw us, and that was a situation where we were fortunately able to recover substantially more than the limits in that situation, because the insurance company had more than enough time, put their head in the sand, took advantage of this man, and put him in a very bad situation.
And what's significant about that is, had the insurance company paid your client, they only would have had to pay him a maximum of $50,000
under their policy.
Under that policy, and then they were now exposed substantially more. So, it's a fine line at times. Just don't think that when an insurance company is not doing what you think that they should be doing doesn't necessarily mean their actions are rising to bad faith. But what Ted actually stressed is, hire someone that can advocate for you, who knows the ins and outs, who eats and breathes this stuff every day. Because trust me, insurance companies are not acting, no matter if it's your insurance company or the third party, they're not acting in your best interest or your behalf. It's all about money at the end of the day for them.
Business.
And a closed file. Phone lines are open. If you got a question about fighting the insurance company, give us a call, 850-392-1544. You can always email us at lawcall@wmbb.com. I believe we have some email questions coming up pretty shortly. Ted, before we get into those, you know, let's just switch gears. I mean, bad faith can be a complex topic at times. Yep. You know, a lot of different variables. But auto insurance, and I know that we talk about this a lot. We'll talk about uninsured motorists later in the show, but a lot of individuals come to us and say, well, I've got full coverage. I know I'm fully covered. I've got uninsured motorists, so I'm not really worried. And then all of a sudden we have to explain to them what full coverage is not.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of terms that they're like nails on a chalkboard when they tell me, when I hear them. Full coverage is one of them, and then I hear frequently we're a no-fault state, so it doesn't matter who was responsible for the accident. Both of those terms are terms of art in Florida insurance law, but they don't mean exactly what you would think is just with the common language. Right. Full coverage by law just means what the legal minimums are. Minimums. And those minimums, thanks to our current status of the law, is that you only have to carry $10,000 of property damage liability. That's to protect the other car, not to protect the person in that car. And the PIP 10,000 no-fault benefits, which are to protect you and the occupants in your car and potentially resident relatives, depending on the status of their own coverage. So that is basically health insurance built into the policy. That's the no-fault aspect. Everybody has to have that, and that, even if you are at fault for the accident and you're injured, will trigger and pay for $10,000 of treatment, but it will not pay for anybody that you harm. That is bodily injury coverage. We had a few years ago where we thought we were going to get what's called mandatory bodily injury coverage passed, and actually passed both the state, Senate, and House, but was vetoed by the governor at that time. So as we sit, full coverage just means $10,000 to protect the other vehicle and $10,000 of PIP. As a result, it is very important, as Chris kind of alluded to earlier, to entertain acquiring uninsured motorist coverage, because one of the riskiest things you do in any given day is get out on that road, because you cannot control what everybody else does. And everybody knows, who's watching this show in Bay County in particular, we have tons of construction going on, and they change those patterns constantly. I just noticed one today coming out of my neighborhood on 390 and Frankfurt, they have changed that pattern, and they have not done any good signage of it. And the first time you see those, it can be very confusing, so be careful out there. But back to the point, if someone hits you and they're one of those individuals that has just full coverage, you are not going to have any recourse if you do not have uninsured motorist coverage. It steps in, and it's coverage that you're buying for someone that causes the accident, whether they have no insurance or not enough for the situation, because if they don't have enough, it will stack on top of theirs. So it's important that you talk with your agent, look at that, because another big pet peeve of mine that I've heard some people say that they were told was, I don't need uninsured motorist coverage because I got health insurance, and health insurance is going to take care of me. Yeah. Well, you can ask anyone that has been in an accident that there are many, many expenses that come up that are not covered by that wonderful health insurance that we all have, that keeps going up with less and less coverage. And there's many types of treatment that you'd like to explore that may or may not be covered under that policy. Plus, even if you got all your medical bills and medical expenses paid for, especially if you have a more severe accident, that's never going to put you in the same place as if you had been before the accident.
Right. So, Ted, we can jump into a little bit of subrogation, health insurance, when we come back from the break. Phone lines are open. Give us a call, 850-392-1544. You can always email us your question at lawcall@wmbb.com. We're going to take our first break of the evening. We'll be back in just a moment. And welcome back to Law Call. Now we're talking about fighting the insurance company. So if you have a question, give us a call, 850-392-1544. You can always email us at lawcall@wmbb.com. Tonight I have Ted Howell. It's not Gary Starr. We're not in Halloween yet. I don't know, if he's going to. You think Gary would dress up as you for Halloween?
I think he would do it any day of the week.
Just not for Halloween?
Yeah, not any day of the week.
Okay. Phone lines are open, 850-392-1544.
We got us a phone call.
We do have a phone call coming up here. You can always email us at lawcall@wmbb.com. But Cindy, we have on the phone from Bay County. Cindy, go ahead with your message. Or your
Yes, I was in a car wreck 3 weeks ago today, and I'm not sure. I didn't get a ticket, so I'm not sure if I was at fault or if the guy was at fault. Because I had let two vehicles that had the right of way, or I'd let them go ahead first before I turned, and he was not in the turning lane, or he wasn't even at the stop sign when I turned. I had the right of way, so I never even saw him until we crashed. He was driving a really fast car. It was a Challenger, and I was in an SUV, and I never even seen it. So I'm not sure if he was going in a high rate of speed, but I know the police officers, when they come up to my car, they asked me if I had a seatbelt on. And I was still in my seatbelt. I said, well, I think I did. I wasn't sure because I guess I was maybe unconscious for a few minutes, but I still had my neck collar on because of the previous wreck I was in 2007. But I'm just wondering, do I get in touch with the police department to find out if I was at fault or?
Cindy, Cindy, you find yourself in a lot of situations that a lot of individuals do. They're like Ted alluded to earlier before the break. We do live in a no-fault state, number one, which it doesn't matter who's at fault in an accident that triggers your own PIP policy. Now, that's just on your own policy there. But it is important to determine who's at fault for liability concerns, whether your insurance company is going to pay for his injuries or whether his insurance company is going to pay for your injuries. Now, it sounds like you also have some pre-existing injuries as well from a prior accident. You can contact the sheriff's office if you'd like to get a copy of the accident report. They probably gave you an exchange of information, but typically they may not even do an accident report. They may have just given an exchange of information there on the scene, and maybe just there may not be one.
Well, it depends on the agency, the level of what they do, but they should have at a minimum given you a driver's exchange. And while this is not dispositive, typically they will put the vehicle number one as the vehicle that they are identifying as the one that's at fault for the accident. And look, I know you mentioned that you're not aware of citations, and citations. Also, depending on the agency, some agencies write more tickets than others, and whether or not there's a citation does not mean that one vehicle was not at fault and one was. But you do need to. And for example, she just mentioned the seatbelt issue. The seatbelt issue, whether or not you even received a citation for that or not, doesn't have any bearing on the liability for the accident itself.
Well, it also sounds like she may have had a closed head injury too with a concussion. Right. And so she's been out for 15 or 20 or 30 seconds and she's unclear. You may have a more serious injury that actually occurred than what you appreciate at the moment. But I mean to cut you off, but we're talking, I guess what you were alluding to is, having a ticket or not a ticket doesn't really matter sometimes.
No, I mean, and unfortunately, I've had many cases where my client was cited and they were just wrong because the underlying facts dictate who's at fault. And in your particular case, it sounds like it's an intersection type scenario, so it's going to depend upon who had the right of way. You believed you had the right of way. If that is accurate, then more likely than not, it's going to be the other person that's at fault for causing the accident. So it just needs to be analyzed. You need to look at the facts. You can get that crash report, which should be available from whatever particular agency did that, or you can go online. There's a particular website where you can get on the back crash. But the most important thing is to get it and look at it so you can make sure you know, because you need to make sure you get your property damage taken care of, and especially if you're having an issue where it sounds like you were unconscious for a period of time, you want to make sure and get that looked at and checked at, because Head injuries are not something that you want to ignore. You need to get that addressed and have proper testing and proper analysis of that testing and make sure that you are okay going forward, especially since we know from what you said that you have a pre-existing injury.
Right. Phone lines are still open, 850-392-154. You can always email us at lawcall@wmbb.com. Cindy, thank you for your call. Ted, before we left for the break, we were getting kind of into an area that some people may not really realize exists, and it's called subrogation.
Yes.
And, you know, when you're involved in an accident, well, my health insurance is going to take care of me, so why should I buy any other type of coverage? And then all of a sudden you realize, oh my goodness, that health insurance is not paying my bills. They're not paying for my lost wages, my pain and suffering, you know, and so on and so forth. And so what they will pay for is your medical bills, assuming that you've reached your deductible, whatever your health care plan is. Now, what we often find is at the end of the day, there's a big piece of paper that comes to you in the form of a lien that says, hey, we've paid, I'm going to just use Cindy as an example, we've paid for Cindy's medical bills. You are representing her. If you settle anything against a third party, you have to recognize us and take care of us.
That's correct. As we mentioned before, everybody, if you're a Floridian and you have a proper coverage, you'll have the PIP no-fault benefits, and that will be your primary insurance for your medical expenses after the accident. However, once that only covers 80% of the bill up to $10,000. So there'll be 20% of the bill that's not covered by the PIP, and then if you have expenses that exceed that $10,000, your health insurance will kick in, and that will pay at that point in time. To the extent your health insurance coverage pays, or if you have Medicare by statute and TRICARE by statute, or VA benefits, they typically have what's called a right of subrogation, and that provides them with a lien on any settlement funds that are generated as a result of the accident. So if there's a third party that's responsible and you make a settlement, then that health insurance, whether it be a private policy or a Medicare, Medicaid, TRICARE type scenario, they will be entitled to be reimbursed all or a portion, depending on the nature of the policy, of what they paid. And so one thing we have seen, Chris, when people try to handle their cases on their own is the insurance company calls them up and says, hey, I'll give you a $5,000 check if you'll just go ahead and resolve this
right
thing.
now, and they'll show up at your door.
Yeah, they'll take that check, and then the individual will get a nice letter from CMS if they have Medicare saying, hey, we paid for a lot of your bills. We need to be reimbursed.
And you owe us $10,000.
$10,000, whatever it may be. And that has to be dealt with. And so that's something where it can get, and look, if you've never been in an accident, if you don't deal with this every day, it's not something you would ever know or be aware of. So it's important to have help, because there's ways to minimize that exposure and ways to make sure that you can maximize what you ultimately have at the end of the day, because that's what we're trying to do. I mean, we want to get people compensated. We want to make sure that whatever they need to have gets paid for properly, and that they are able to leave the situation as best as they can and as close to where they should have been before the accident.
So number one, if you've been involved in an accident or have a question about an insurance company, get a lawyer.
Yes.
I mean, you know, get a lawyer. Get someone to help you.
Yeah.
And then number two is, if you hire a firm like ours, we get paid on a contingency fee.
Right.
So we handle your case for nothing up front, and we only get paid unless you get paid at the end.
Right.
So you avoid all these pitfalls that you normally would not even know existed, and you've got a law firm that's representing you, taking care of you on the back end.
So you're going to make sure that whatever you need to have done, to the extent that there's money out there to make sure that that can be taken care of, is available to you. You have access to it. Because look, when you get in an accident, a lot of the issue is the unknown and the fear of the unknown and not knowing what you need to do. And so what we do, especially on the front end, is gather that information as quickly as possible so that you can make an educated decision of the best step forward for you and your family. How am I going to deal with this? How am I going to get through this? And then you can focus on getting better.
Right. Phone lines are still open, 850-392-1544. You can always email us at lawcall@wmbb.com. It's Fighting the Insurance Company right now with Chris and Ted. Taking our last break of the evening. We'll be back in just a moment. And welcome back to Law Call. And we're in our last segment of the evening. We've got basically a minute 30 left. Ted, did anybody want to give a shout out to?
Yep, we're going to give a shout out to Randy Howell and everybody that should be taking care of him, that is taking care of him on the second floor there at Gulf Coast. I know he can be ornery at times, but I promise you he's a good man. He's just hungry and wants to eat something.
Do you think that our audience or Randy would appreciate them calling Gulf Coast and saying, hey, can I speak to Randy Howell just to cheer him up?
Yeah, give him a call.
Okay.
I'm sure they got a party line up there.
Anybody else?
I should give a shout out to Gary Starr too, since you said I'm impersonating him today.
I
Gary,
he was going to dress up
appreciate all
as
the
you
love.
for Halloween, but
Yeah.
And your wife.
Yes,
And
Heather
Vivian.
and Judson and
And
Vivian,
Judson.
who should not be watching. They need to be asleep and getting
Jan.
ready.
And Jan.
Oh yeah, it was my mom's birthday on
Happy
Friday.
birthday, Jan. I'm
She
glad I
came
remembered
down.
it, not Ted.
Thank you.
I'm giving a shout out to Ashley, a little boss man with her, my mom, Mason, my nephew's watching tonight.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, man. Yeah, he's tuned in. Go Tigers.
Yeah.
Charles and Marjorie, Trey Smith, Judy Smith, Pam Myers, Paula Frederick, Rick at the Marlin, and I actually wrote down Gary Starr too.
Look at there.
Look at
The
that,
double shout out. A rare but achievable goal.
Thank goodness we got to end this show tonight.
Yeah.
Hey guys, thank you for watching tonight. Thank you for the email questions. We had some emails we couldn't get to, but we'll get to those later in the week. And thank you for watching the show. Everybody have a safe week coming up, and God bless, and have a safe Halloween, I guess.
Absolutely.